Voting is a civic duty. Let's register on the electoral list. This is a message from Equinoxe Television.
Good evening to all of you faithful viewers of Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the news tonight. Our major stories this evening: Christians in Cameroon today are celebrating the feast of the Ascension. It is a day that Christians believe Jesus Christ was taken up to heaven, body and soul, after the resurrection. Ascension Thursday today was characterized by prayers and other Eucharistic celebrations in various churches in Cameroon. How did it happen in Douala? We tell you more in this news edition. Plus, it is the rainy season already, and floods are also around the corner. How are those who live in risk areas preparing to brave the rainy season and also the floods? We made a stop over at some neighborhoods here in the economic capital, Douala. And also in this edition of the news, the world mourns the passing away of a great author and legendary writer, Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Ngugi wa Thiong'o dies today in Kenya at the age of 87. Viewers, those are our lead stories. Details and more when we come back. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for the confidence. We begin in religion tonight. We told you a while ago that Christians in Cameroon today are celebrating the feast of the Ascension. The feast of the Ascension, the Christians believe, is when Jesus Christ was taken into heaven, body and soul, that runs after the resurrection. Ascension Thursday today was characterized by prayers and Eucharistic celebrations in various churches here in the economic capital, Douala. And our reporter, Mala Glory, was at the St. Peter and Paul's Cathedral, and she now tells us how Ascension was celebrated there.
Singing songs of joy, the Christians of St. Peter and Paul Cathedral in Douala used their torch lights to read through their song books due to blackout in the church. A situation which, however, did not discourage Christians from celebrating the Ascension Day, the rapture of Jesus Christ into heaven 40 days after Easter Sunday. To these Christians, it reminds them of Jesus' second coming. It's a victory over his death. For me to keep in mind, he fought and died for us and will come back for the second time to take us home. To me, each time I celebrate Ascension Day, I have the faith that my good works for humanity is recognized in heaven. During the Mass that was presided over by Reverend Father Lissouk II, Gabriel Honoré, the assistant parish priest of St. Peter and Paul Cathedral, Catholic Christians were reminded that they are citizens of heaven and must live according to the Holy Book.
For us today, this feast is the anticipation of our own ascension. We are also called to, like Christ, to go to heaven. It means that we are citizens of heaven, and like citizens of heaven, we have to work for the reality of heaven, not the reality of the earth.
The Mass ended with the Holy Communion received by Christians who answered present.
Happy Ascension Day to all Christians out there. And now we're talking security. A military officer alongside 8 accomplices who masterminded the robbery of some Chinese business operators in the months of September last year and April this year in the economic capital Douala have been presented to the press during the presentation at the Judicial Police Station in Bonanjo here in Douala. One of the suspects said they were trained by the military officer before their operation. Smaljikan Gabriel has more.
Military equipment, amongst them boots, bags and uniforms, were some of the items displayed at the esplanade of the Judicial Police Station in Bonanjo as security forces presented a group of 7 who allegedly attacked some Chinese businessmen on September 14, 2024 and April 8, 2025. The initiator of the act, a military man, and the fake military officer, Epale, are absent. The robbery of the Chinese businessman was well planned. We had meetings before the robbery around Hila Hotel. It was during these meetings that he told us what is supposed to happen and informed us that we are going to be rich after, since it was about 300 million francs CFA we were about to get from the Chinese. He told us how to behave when we see a superior military officer. They also disguised in military outfits to keep away suspicions.
The assailants were disguised in military garb in order to overcome any opposition from the victims. Subsequent investigation carried out in conjunction with the 3rd Arrondissement Public Security Police Station in Douala led to the arrest of 7 individuals in Douala, Yaoundé and Fumban, one of whom is a military on duty in military sector number 2 who was exploited with the help of the Littoral Gendarmerie Legion.
Unfortunately, the people who were told by the military officer that they will be rich after the operation left disappointed. When the Chinese arrived, the real military officer, Lin Jun, parked his motorcycle outside, saying he will take care of the security at the gate, while we went up, robbed the Chinese business persons. Unfortunately, we didn't meet the 300 million francs CFA we were told, but instead got 700,000 francs CFA. We also collected 2 iPhones. The military officer, who is the brain behind the 2 separate robbery cases, have been arrested and under investigation at the Gendarmerie Legion office in Bonanjo, Douala.
And now we told you in the headlines that it is the rainy season already in Douala. It has been a rainy day in the economic capital Douala and in other parts of the country, and floods are also around the corner as well. So many persons in Douala live in risk zones. How are those who live in those risk areas preparing to brave the rainy season floods? We made a stop over at some neighborhoods in the economic capital Douala. Cedric Chakuto completes the story.
With the arrival of the rainy season, residents of Douala are preparing for inundations, especially those living along rivers and drainage systems, with precautionary measures and development projects aimed at reducing risk of inundations. In Makepe, Misoke, a neighborhood in the Douala 5 subdivision, some residents create channels to deviate the water.
The inundation here, we suffer a lot. And we are trying our best to see how we can do to prevent it. We pay people to clean the gutters in order to prevent at least the water to come in. So, and we do the filling, as if people can see like that. We do the filling in order to have a certain level, a certain height.
Others in the same locality say the use would dust so as to prevent their houses from floods.
On a mis le copeau pour juste chasser l'eau autour de la maison pour éviter les inondations. Parce que les inondations, ça crée, donc avec les enfants, les inondations ne sont pas bien pour l'entourage.
Some meters away at the Mbanya bridge, vendors along the bridge explain the method they use when their store is attacked by water during the rainy season.
We already know the time when the water wants to come. When the water wants to come, we struggle to get our roofs, to tie all our irons, to be taken care with everything. We don't want water to carry our iron. And then we prevent to tie everything, gather our material and keep it on top of that table before the water came.
Floods can cause significant damage, including property loss and disruption to daily life. So some prefer staying at home for their safety.
Est-ce qu'il y a des préparations? Parce que quand il pleut là, il n'y a pas d'activité, non? Quand il pleut, moi je suis obligé de porter. Quand il y a trop d'eau, je porte, je rentre à la maison.
The Douala Urban Council is still to carry out works to clean gutters and calibrate drains to improve rainwater fall. But for the moment, residents are still waiting for these solutions.
In other news, transparency and accountability remain elusive in relation to the mismanagement or management of COVID-19 funds in Cameroon, despite reports of possible mismanagement from the national and international audit institutions, a sharp contrast with what is happening in Senegal and other countries which have already taken tough measures against corruption. Cameroon received approximately 137 billion francs CFA from the IMF in relation to COVID-19. For me, Antron Sanda reports.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought significant challenges to many countries, including Cameroon and Senegal. Both received substantial fundings to combat the pandemic, but allegations of mismanagement and corruption have marred the efforts. In Cameroon, for example, the government received approximately $360 million to fight COVID-19, with $270 million coming from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. However, an audit report from the audit chambers of the Supreme Court of Cameroon revealed numerous allegations, including overbilling, mismanagement, and corruption. For example, a single company, Medellin Medical Cameroon, was awarded a quasi-monopoly on government contracts for personal protective equipment, PPE, COVID-19 tests, and other medical materials, despite lacking experience in the country. Regarding mismanagement, the government couldn't account for the products received, including some 610 COVID-19 tests. On corruption, the audit chamber recommended initiating some 10 judicial cases regarding findings that likely violated criminal laws. Despite these findings, there seemed to be a lack of follow-up and action taken against those responsible. The Cameroonian government has been criticized for its lack of transparency and accountability in the management of COVID-19 funds. In contrast, Senegal has taken a more proactive approach in addressing the mismanagement of COVID-19 funds. 28 individuals, including artists, entertainers, and government officials, have been charged with embezzlement of public funds, fraud, favoritism, and corruption. Nearly 260 million francs CFA were recovered, and some 5 government ministers are being investigated for their role in the misuse of COVID-19 funds in the country. The Senegalese government has demonstrated a commitment to transparency and accountability, with the new government under President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko vowing to take strong measures against those responsible for mismanagement of public funds. Senegal's proactive approach to addressing corruption and mismanagement stands in contrast to Cameroon's seeming lack of action.
And now in Iseka, in the Young and Ekele division of the Central Region, the high rate of unemployment has been a challenge to young people. With few opportunities available, many youths have resorted to the transport sector to make a living. As a means to resolve this plague, community initiatives such as youth gatherings are being implemented to empower the young people in Iseka. Lucy Liengu is here reports.
In an environment characterized by high unemployment rate, young people in Iseka, Nyong and Kele division of the Central Region face challenges. As a result, many have turned to the transport sector, while others have engaged in illegal activities to make ends meet. We notice that the youths have a problem. They are not being assisted financially and feel abandoned. The youth councillor of Iseka, Monet, highlights that despite being one of Cameroon's rich agricultural areas, Iseka has seen a decrease in agricultural output. Many believe that the youth do not fully utilize the land for farming. To address these issues, a week-long youth cafe took place at the Iseka Community Hall, where local youth leaders and civil society organizations came together to identify the problems affecting their community. Monet calls on the youth to take bold steps, not to wait for government assistance, but to engage in various activities and become self-employed. However, these can only be achieved through awareness and initiatives like these gatherings. Together, they collaborated to develop solutions aimed at actively involving young people in local development process, with the goal of creating sustainable opportunities and improving the living condition of young people in Iseka in the Young and Kele division.
And now we move to news out of our national frontiers. Rescue soldiers continue to battle to save migrants, including many Africans undertaking the perilous journey to Europe for greener pastures. In one of the latest incidents, a boat capsized on arrival at Spain's Canary Island. Many were rescued, but others drowned and lost their lives. Babila Jonathan with our foreign news roundup.
Several people have been rescued and 2 children, a girl and a boy, evacuated to a hospital in serious condition after they nearly drowned when a boat carrying migrants capsized within reach of shore as it arrived at Spanish Canary Islands Wednesday. In the chaotic scene at El Hierro's port, survivors clung to ropes and life preservers tossed by rescuers. Spain's Maritime Rescue Service said the boat tipped over as rescuers started removing young people onto a rescue craft positioned between the migrant one and the quay. Local media said the small boat appeared to be packed with over 100 people. 7 of them, 4 women and 3 girls, drowned. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said on social media, I quote, "The drama witnessed on El Hierro should move us all. Those lives were lost in an attempt to find a better future." The Spanish archipelago, located off Africa's western coast, has for years been a main route for migrants who risk their lives in dinghies and rubber boats unfit for long journeys in the open sea. Thousands have been known to die on the way to European territory. Nearly 47,000 people who made the crossing last year reached the archipelago, surpassing previous records for a second time. Most were citizens of Mali, Senegal and Morocco, with many boarding boats to Spain from the coast of Mauritania. The arrivals include thousands of unaccompanied minors.
With that, we come to an end of the first part of the news. Let's now move on to talking points. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest tonight is Emmanuel NDIWUM. He is a civil society actor, and today we are discussing incivility of Cameroonians in the country, especially the occupation of roadside pavements in major cities in Cameroon. Thank you, Emmanuel, for accepting to be our guest tonight on the news. Like I mentioned, today we are talking on incivility of Cameroonians, mostly business persons who occupy roadside pavements in major cities like Douala and Yaoundé. We have done reports where we see makeshift structures which have been destroyed so as to embellish the city, so to speak. Emmanuel, when we look critically at urban disorder in Cameroon, where does the greater portion of the blame be attributed?
It's my pleasure to be here again. Well, I want to start by saying that the incivility of Cameroonians can be blamed on 3 persons. The first person is the common man on the street who has not been sensitized enough to know what civility is all about. The second is the government, which has failed woefully to actually take charge of its responsibility. And the third person is still the government, because when you are talking about business people who occupy road pavement, first questions that we should be asking is, why are they there in the first place? They want to strive for a livelihood, because life has become very difficult. And you know certainly for sure that for you to own a shop in Cameroon now, in the economic city of Douala, Yaoundé, or Bafoussam, it takes a lot of capital. How many people, especially those who have migrated from the war-torn Northwest and Southwest region, can be able to have a place of their own to settle? It goes back to the fact that the government has decided that those who are already up there remains up there, while those who are down there remains down there and remains poorer. Because these people who are selling by the roadside vendors, they don't have anywhere to go to, they don't have shops, and it baffles me again that there is something we call a council in this country. We even have city council. They have trained some brutal elements in this domain who come out. There is nothing like dialogue with them, even to, have a moment of exchange with such people who are having businesses by the roadside to understand their situation. They come, they just break, they carry their oranges, they carry their items. Sometimes they will smash them on the street. And all of this have been happening. I was in Yaoundé last week, I received a complaint around Marché Equinoxe with proofs where the councilman came, got everything broken, smashed over items of poor women who had nothing to do. Even the police were watching. So I think it will be unjust to place the blame on the roadside vendors who are just struggling to live. Because as you know that in Cameroon, most of us are just existing, we are not even living. Given the fact that the precarious economic conditions that have engulfed Cameroonians have become so difficult that everybody is just looking for where to survive. The question is, if they want to remove these people from the street now, where was the government or the councils when the people were settling there? It is sad. It comes back to the fact that urban town development in Cameroon has failed. And to the best of my knowledge, it will appear there is a ministry in charge of that. So it just explains that in a failed government, such things should be happening.
To know where the blame should be attributed is also a major concern, Emmanuel. Now, in areas like the Douala Central Market or Marché Central and Ndokoti, demolitions have always been done there in a bid to send away those guys. But at the same time, we see tax collectors, you mentioned a while ago, pass around to collect taxes for occupying roadside pavements. Can't we consider that as playing a double game, like the authorities want to eat their cakes and have it?
Enough, these people have never failed to collect tax, even when they notice that such a shop has been earmarked for breaking. They come there, they sit, they negotiate, they collect their envelope. That's why we are saying that in the Third Republic, such criminals, they will be brought to book immediately. If a shop has already been earmarked for demolition, and you see a tax agent passing there, I am not promoting violence in Cameroonians, but I think it is time for Cameroonians to actually stand up. For example, if my shop has been marked for demolition, and I see somebody coming there, if I have my means to deal with the person, I will deal with the person squarely. Because the kind of corruption that exists between these same people who say they want to clear off the road pavements, and those occupying these places, and the agents that are sent to collect taxes is very enormous. At the end of the day, the little that they sell, they collect and give to such criminals. And the problems remain, which means they collect their money, they pass away, but the problems remain there. So, which is typical, it's a prototype, it's a prototype of the kind of government we have. It doesn't only exist in this sector. Let me tell you, let me shift you a bit out of your question. We have big people in this country who have built where the government had earmarked routes to pass. And the size of the routes have been forced to be reduced because of the fear. I don't want to cite a particular Carrefour here, where until the owner of a hotel around that area died, before the government, city council, had authority now to go and break part of the route that was passing in front of his hotel, simply because there was a deal between him, his personality, and the authorities. You see that at the end of the day, only you and I, who are the low people, pay the price.
Emmanuel, from your analysis, can we conclude somehow without fear that the local administration authorities are accomplices or contribute to the disorder we live in towns in Cameroon?
When you ask whether the local authorities are accomplices, they are in a business-making venture. Let me tell you. In Cameroon, it has been observed keenly that government agents exploit bad situations to fill their bank accounts. When such missions are given to them to be executed, they see in it golden opportunities to make money out of the vulnerable. They are accomplices because at times, before they even pass there, they already announced to the owners of these places that this day, shift a bit to this area because we'll be around. So that when we're around, it will look like a kind of, the space was open. Immediately we pass, you can come out. When they must have collected, if not, why do we take 43 years talking about urban development, opening roads, clearing off roadside vendors, and it keeps persisting. Remember that 3 years ago there was a war waged by the Douala City Council around Mbopi, where there is Equinoxe. I mean, to clear off people. And I can tell you that go there today, there is no path, even for pedestrians, to walk. The same people are occupying the same places. Tell me what changed after that war that was waged against roadside vendors. After that, no, before that, during that, and after that, what has changed? Nothing has changed. So they are accomplices. We can say it without fear of favor.
And Emmanuel, we have heard the local authorities talk of administrative tolerance, that they are just tolerating the people because they are trying to look for their daily bread. But now, how possible is it to be tolerant yet getting revenue from the merchants? Is that really being tolerant?
Administrative tolerance in Cameroon is in its real sense is tolerating the wrong things. Why we use bad situations to make money out of it. When sometimes I was telling somebody, you see, in administrative tolerance, there are two factors that comes in. There is what we call premeditated error and unpremeditated error. The second one warrants administrative tolerance. The first one must be punishable because it is a test to the authorities that be. But we will understand that the one that is instead premeditated is the one that is not punishable because they will pay. The one that is by error are those who pay the price. Like that woman who just comes out, who has nothing to eat. She struggles to raise some small capital to sell oranges. Since she has nothing to offer in terms of bribe, since you cannot corrupt the agents that are already corrupted, her business will be broken down. It will be shattered. At the end of the day, she will go back to the house. I cannot fail to mention before leaving that a lot of Cameroonians have died of frustration than every pandemic that ever happened. Frustration because the authorities in place has kept every machinery capable of frustrating Cameroonians the more, especially when it comes to tax agents.
You're not going yet, Emmanuel. Can we now see definitely that the underdevelopment in Cameroon is not at all due to ignorance but lack of willpower?
I've always said, if Mr. Abia and his people, his government, wants to change Cameroon and to take Cameroon towards development, it takes a second. It takes just goodwill to say no. For 43 years, we have embezzled a lot. We have corrupted a lot. In fact, we have siphoned a lot of money. But we are taking, this is my will today, that we have to put things right. If he says it so, and he means it, things will change. There's no doubt. There is no doubt that there has not been a will. That is why when Thabo Mbeki spoke the other day, telling the whole world how the president of my country has not been open to dialogue, I corroborated because I have known that my president is not very open to dialogue. And not being very open to dialogue is simply because there is a lack of will. Like it is said, where there is a will, there is a way. But there is no way out in Cameroon because there is no will. Thank you.
That's right, Emmanuel. Thank you so much for being our guest tonight on the news, and hope to have you some other time. Viewers, thank you so much for always being in our company. That was what we put together for you this evening. Our programs continue. Equinoxe comes up in about 30 minutes with Serge Alain, and the news in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. with Irish Ngolomala. Once again, happy Ascension Thursday to all Christians out there. Bye-bye for now, and see you again tomorrow, same time, God willing.